Thanks, Gary. So I'm going to share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here. And thanks to Noreen for the invitation. My absolute pleasure. So Noreen, can I just get a time check here? I know we ran over a little and I don't want to eat into your breakout rooms. It's just about 20 to 5. So can you let me know how long we have?
You have 10 minutes to talk and 5 minutes for questions. So like
Fantastic.
15 minutes. Is that okay? Perfect. Thanks,
Fantastic. Joanne. So guys, as I'm talking, please note your questions and I'll get to them for the last 5 minutes. Listening to Niamh and to Thomas and to Karen and to Dave, you guys have lots of stories that you should be sharing online. Let me start by saying that trust is the #1 currency in the digital age. We need subject matter experts to be sharing your knowledge. And of course, you guys are interested in ocean literacy and engaging with citizens in the main, but other stakeholders. This is the Edelman Trust Barometer, and it's carried out every January. And it measures trust in business, NGOs, media, and government. And as you can see, government, which includes government agencies and public sector, is sitting in the lower quadrant on the left-hand side, which describes public trust among government and public sector agencies as unethical and less competent. So you can imagine if somebody described you or your work like this, you'd be absolutely horrified. But such is, I guess, the lack of confidence and trust that citizens have right now. And this, we should put this in context. This study was taken ended in January, so pre-COVID. In a pre-COVID world, I think COVID has really helped to showcase the work that public sector and governments do. So we need subject matter experts. And I call the world that we live in now the S3 age. It's dominated by search, which is Google, and YouTube, also owned by Google. Social, the social networks, so Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok. And then finally, it's all bound together by the stories that we tell. And having just listened to Niamh talking about her use of seaweed and creating those delicious margaritas, that in itself is sticky content that people would want to engage with. So my biggest tip for you today is unleash your stories and find your audience on the right platform. And so looking at the benefits of digital communications, and we all have a responsibility to share our story online. One of the big criticisms of the internet and of social media is the infodemic and the spread of fake news and misinformation. I feel really strongly that in order to halt fake news, we need subject matter experts to rise to the top, that your content rises to the top of the internet. So I think we all have a part to play in overcoming fake news. And when you engage in digital communications, so that means publishing content on your website or on a stakeholder website, or publishing content on your own organization or personal social networks, you're engaging in that two-way conversation. And that content is then left on the internet. It has a digital footprint and it is your legacy. So it can help increase trust in your work, knowledge and interest in your work, can engage citizens so that they engage in a conversation, and also, and probably more importantly, that you create advocates. When people are interested in subject matter, they become advocates and champions for your work, but you need to commit to going online. So if we think about social media marketing, and lots of people are interested in social media right now, there's 3 steps to master it and to think about it strategically. #1 is to identify your audience. I was doing some training this morning with an MEP and her team, and we were talking about the citizens that she might want to engage, and we were breaking them down into what I call niche audiences. If you want to be successful online, you have to go niche. There's no point in saying, you know what, Joanne, I want everybody to understand biodiversity from the age of 8 to the age of 80. While you might want to achieve that, you're not going to achieve that in one singular message. Because if I want you to engage my 10-year-old son, Bobby, on biodiversity, you're going to have a very different story to tell to Bobby compared to if you want to encourage and educate me on biodiversity. So what we do is we identify our audiences and we segment them. So you might take primary school children, then you might have second level school children, you might have third level students, then you might have people who live on the coast. So that's communities. So segmenting your audience is the first step. Secondly, we need to have goals. Most people, not most, that's too general. Some people go online and go on social with what I call a hope strategy. They go on, they engage, and they hope for the best. What we really want to do is to be strategic and to be really clear on what we want to achieve. So defining your goals. So for example, you might decide that Twitter is your channel of choice and that you want to influence the influencers on Twitter and you want to have a peer-to-peer conversation, and maybe you want to get your Twitter account to maybe 2,000 followers. Maybe you want to get your account verified by Twitter and get the blue tick. And maybe you want to trend on a particular day so that you are dominating a particular conversation and all the eyes of Twitter on one day are on your account and what you're saying. And then thirdly, we go and find our audience and we find out on what channel that they're on. So this is an infographic that depicts audience segmentation. And you're free, I will give these slides to Noreen, and you're free to kind of use these or tweak these for inspiration to create your own audiences. So you can see I have a broad range of audiences here. And what I've done is I've named the audience. I've put an age demographic on them. And I've also identified where on social media I'm going to find them. So if we think about empty nesters, okay, so perhaps their children have grown up, they've left home, and we have a couple perhaps in their 50s, they're empty nesters. Where am I going to find them? I'll find them on Facebook and on Twitter. If I think about first timers, so people who are buying their first house, having their first child, buying their first car, moving out of home for the first time, they're about 18 to 34, and I'd find them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So it would be nice for you as a task to think about your audience subsets, put a little name on them, and describe them by their interests and their behavior. Okay, because online, that's how we find people. People come together based on interests. If we think about Facebook, the Facebook algorithm was built on the relationship graph. So we connect with people based on a relationship to them, friends or family. When you move over to Twitter or LinkedIn, they're built on the interest graph. So we connect with each other based on a shared interest. So it's very important not just to define audiences by age or location, but also by interests and behavior. So this infographic just shares with you all of the social networks, and I don't have Pinterest in here, and maybe having a look at the number of users. You can read all of that later. But what I do want to say on this one, if I am thinking about audiences, right, and I'm thinking about Niamh and promoting the fact of how she is creating food and creating inspiring and obviously tasty food that is inspired by the sea and the coast, and obviously we've got food from the sea. I think that she definitely has a place on Instagram. Instagram is a visual social network. It's currently the world's fastest growing social network. It's owned by Facebook, and you've got lots of interesting features to engage an audience on Instagram. We describe Instagram as a place where the experience is very immersive. It's full screen on your mobile phone, so you can watch people's stories. So these are like 15-second videos, or they're still photos, and they bring people behind the scenes. So you get to know the culture and the personality of people within an organization. You also get to know people more closely because you're bringing them behind the scenes of your personal life or your professional life. Food is massive on Instagram, as is travel, as is home, health and well-being. Instagram also has a video platform called Instagram TV. So you can create a series of videos. So I can actually see Niamh putting together maybe a series on food inspired by seaweed. Okay, so she might be doing a demo of how to create that margarita. She might be interviewing another chef, one of her colleagues, and talking about the power of seafood and introducing it into menus. She might then interview a customer who's tasted the food. So again, it's all about storytelling. we get so caught up in social networks and understanding how to use them. I mean, you can be taught how to use them very quickly, but the secret to success is in the story that is compelling, that engages another human being. If we jump to Twitter, all of you as subject matter experts should be on Twitter. Twitter is a platform where I say that you influence the influencers. We've got the media there, we've got politicians, we've got civil servants, we've got your funders, we've got other stakeholders and peers that you work with. And we also have subject matter experts and interest group. So Twitter is a place for you to develop your professional voice, and to also kind of share out your research and share out your work. If we move to Facebook, the world's largest social network, 2.6 billion people in the world are using it. Within Ireland, there are over 2.5 million people within the country on Facebook. This is a brilliant platform to engage. And I did a study 2 years ago called The State of Social Media in Ireland's Public Sector. And I analysed the social media footprint of 330 government agencies. I sound like I have lots of time on my hand, but I'm just a bit of a nerd. And what I found was that Facebook pages that are linked to local organizations perform best, because Facebook is kind of like your local newspaper and your local radio station combined into one. But actually, I should point out, when I did that study, the Facebook page of the Marine Institute actually came in the top 3 in the country. Why? Because their engagement rate is so high, because when the Marine Institute go out to their audience, the audience responds because the content is compelling and engages with them. If you have your story that matches an audience, you're going to win. Also, a channel that might be of interest to you is LinkedIn. And LinkedIn, we might think, oh, I'm not looking for a job, I don't want to be there. But LinkedIn is all about building authority. So we share our authority content on there. And again, it's peer-to-peer. It's a lovely place to be. The algorithm is very favorable. It will be seen by lots of people. You choose who you want to connect with. So you can go to LinkedIn, you can search for people that have the same job title as you, and you can connect with people all around the world. And then the content that you share on LinkedIn is related to your work. When you decide on your segmented audiences, when you decide then what channels you're going to find them, and then you have the story that you want to share with them, then we get into tactics. So every social network has particular features. So as I mentioned on Instagram, they've got IGTV, they've got stories. Twitter has lists. Twitter also has like Twitter chats. You go to Facebook, you can have a Facebook event, you can go live on Facebook. So then you're just leveraging all the features of all the social networks to reach as many relevant people as possible. Okay. And what I would say in terms of social media trends right now, video is definitely king. It feels like we've been saying this for 3 years, but video is king. If you produce video, then you're going to get more reach, you're going to get more attention from people who are on those social networks. And I can tell you, my little tip for you in terms of video is just get your phone and buy a little tripod that I have and start talking to it. Create short 30-second videos. Don't be afraid of the camera. You have great stories to tell. I've just been sitting on for 15 minutes and I heard about 7 or 8 fantastic stories that you could just recreate by telling that story to your phone. The other type of video that is very popular and that will really help you is going live. People are nervous to go live because the whole world is watching and things might go wrong. But you can actually go live on Facebook to yourself and nobody else sees it. So maybe practice with that. Other trends, personalized content such as stories. So stories are on Instagram. They're also on Facebook. They were born in Snapchat, and stories are coming to LinkedIn. People in Brazil are the first nation to have stories on LinkedIn. So stories are 15-second videos that self-delete after 24 hours. And stories allow you actually just to tell a more personalized stories. And when we think about stories on Instagram, people are spending 60% more of their time on Instagram stories than they are actually on the Instagram newsfeed. So because we really enjoy it, we're getting to know people a lot more. Also here in my little tactics wheel, you'll see that I have email and Google. The reason that I have that there is if I'm thinking about the whole 360-degree wheel of digital communications, I'm thinking about search. I'm thinking about people going to Google and putting in, you know, recipes with seaweed, okay? So don't ever forget about the power of search, because that is the internet. The internet is made up of search and social. So that is Google and YouTube. And then email. Email marketing is not dead. About 91% of people use email every day. And email is the closest place to a conversion that we get in the digital marketing funnel. What I mean by that is, if you're trying to engage somebody on social's at the top. You're kind of battling with the attention of millions of other users to get somebody's attention. Whereas if somebody gives you their email address in exchange for something of value, for example, a weekly or a monthly newsletter, they're telling you that they want to hear from you. You have a captive audience and you have advocates. So you should be building up your email list, and we can do it in compliance with GDPR. So that should not be a worry. The only thing that you have to ask yourself is, what value can I exchange to a citizen or a customer for an email address? For me, I send people a weekly email, tell them what's happening, give them free advice, free tips. So something like a newsletter. Okay, and I think I'm going to take questions. I'm going to take questions at this stage. So if you want to take yourself off mute, if you have any, or if you have any in chat.
I think the comments that are just coming back, Joanne, are just like, it's just so brilliant. It's great. Like even I've just been jotting down all these like just notes. I've had beside me here and I'm scribbling. And even though I know you're saying the slides, sometimes I just love to have like a word or two written down. One question I had for you was the Irish Ocean Literacy Network LinkedIn group is a closed group.
Yeah.
That I either like, so if somebody joins as a member, what I will do is I will look on LinkedIn to see if they're on LinkedIn, and then if they are, I'll send them an invitation to the group. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have to find the group and you have to request to join. Is that a good idea, or should it just be like an open? It's very hard to know what people are engaging with the posts, because you can't really see how many views. Where your personal LinkedIn account, you can see if you've reached 100 or 200 people.
So my answer to that is your content private and confidential?
No, I don't think so. Like the messages we're sharing are the same messages that we put out on Twitter and Facebook. So now, I mean, I suppose like then you have to say, well, what's the value to being a member compared to, like obviously there's a lot of people on Twitter. We've over 1,000 followers, and obviously hundreds of those are not members. So the idea with the LinkedIn group is that maybe you're offering content that would be just for members.
Yeah.
Our membership is free at the moment, so it doesn't really, I don't know. Yeah.
LinkedIn have had an age-old problem with groups because of that very reason for engagement. What they have done though is you can now see posts from groups that you're a member of in newsfeed. So that came as a new update about 18 months ago. Another thing that you can do is every 7 days you can do a broadcast post. You probably know this feature. And when you post it, everybody in the group is notified.
I actually only discovered it last week. I didn't realize, and I discovered it last week, and I put out about this meeting. I put it out as an announcement, and then I tried to do one a couple of days later, and it was like, you can only do one every 7 days, which is good. But I just discovered it last week. It was
so maybe just do your broadcast message once a week, and then promote the group once a week on your own personal newsfeed. And actually, if everybody within the group and within your network had that standard post that they put out maybe once a month, that would then gather momentum.
That's a brilliant idea. Thank you so much. That's a brilliant idea.